What do those candles smell like? They smell like memories, like your favorite theme park snack or an iconic dark ride scene. Relive that favorite vacation, bring it home with just a click. MagicCandleCompany.com. Get ready to smell the magic. What's going on, toy fans? It's Dan here, and today we're going to talk about everyone's favorite genus giraffe, Geoffrey. That's right, it's time to take a look at the evolution of Toys R Us's Geoffrey the Giraffe! Cause I don't wanna grow up, I'm a Toys R Us kid.
They got a million toys at Toys R Us that I can play with.
From bikes to trains to video games, everyone knows that part, right? It's the biggest toy store there is, gee whiz!
I don't wanna grow up, don't wanna grow up, I wanna be a Toys R Us kid.
That's all I got. That's all that there is, really. I mean, no one really knows the rest of the song, right? Let's go all the way back where Charles Lazarus, the owner of Children's Bargain Supermarket, a children's furniture store, starts to sell toys. But before he knew it, the little section of toys he was selling in the corner of his store took off, and everyone was coming to visit him to buy toys more than they were furniture. And to help market his brand new corner toy store called Toys R Us, he invented the lovable character named Dr. Giraffe, who was this very anatomically correct drawn giraffe who had those big ossicomb things, which are violent death weapons for giraffes, by the way. Those two horns on their heads are for, their violent thumb wrestling neck matches that they get, like giraffes get into. And boy, everyone loved him. And he was tall, the signs were super big. The giraffe was everywhere, and he was in print marketing nonstop through the 60s, and the nation kind of started associating Geoffrey with toys, because every day in the paper, there'd be another ad for more toys saying to everybody, not only do they sell toys here at the supermarket, but Toys R Us. That's right, the name of the store was an original quote from Geoffrey himself. Toys R Us, before you knew it, was off and running, and by the early 70s, Charles Lazarus reinvented the entire idea of what the toy store could be. Yeah, Charles Lazarus was a wise man, and he jumped back, well, until Walmart came around. But we'll get there.
Toys R Us.
The first Geoffrey costume in the early 70s, all the way back to 1972, he's tap dancing, and that's not the only cool thing about him. He's also fully articulated. Trust me when I say that the amount of effort that went into making this giraffe costume was a lot of effort for the 70s, all right? Considering that this was just a regular toy retailer. Look at Disney World and what they were doing in the 70s, and it's pretty on par with what Toys R Us was putting out. It's pretty incredible. And then Geoffrey became a family man with wife Gigi, daughter baby G, and, of course, baby Geoffrey. And these mascots almost right away were made into full costume characters, and right off the bat, they're more in tune with the scale that we're familiar with. What's cool about this costume is it was built in two pieces. It has this really, really, really long neck. This costume is over 10 feet tall. It's like two human people tall, and they do this ridiculous thing by giving Geoffrey this big dog collar with his name on it. But they used that collar specifically to hide the seam of this gigantic neck that had to be clicked together and bolted into the shoulders of the performer, because this performer is just going full tilt giraffe with this thing. And then suddenly, magically, nigh overnight, Geoffrey was reinvented into a compact little Geoffrey costume. And then it was boom, 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 these wonderful little staggered heights between Geoffrey, his wife, and his daughter. As Geoffrey began to take shape on camera as this wonderful costumed character with lots of really great and fun jingles, he was also being animated pretty regularly for commercials as well, and he was being voiced by none other than Thurl Ravenscroft, everyone's favorite ghost host from the Haunted Mansion.
Well, stop your looking and start to shopping at the store that has them all.
In fact, there are some commercials where I'm just waiting for Geoffrey to start telling me about cadaverous pallors and foolish mortals.
To find a way out.
Also recognizable by Tony the Tiger, right? Thurl Ravenscroft was just everywhere, but including Geoffrey Giraffe. And Geoffrey had this really deep, bellowing voice, which was really fun to listen to.
The world's biggest toy store is Toys R Us. The biggest selection, Toys R Us.
The 70s were so intense, all right, when it came to this Geoffrey costume. Geoffrey, he was tap dancing, he was traveling, they were painting, they went to New York and San Francisco, and then at a certain point, they're just like, what haven't we done with Geoffrey? Oh, that's right, Neon Disco Fever Dream. This looks like a number from Trolls, if all the trolls were giraffes, all right? By the time we get to the 1980s with the Toys R Us brand, they were experimenting left and right with new ways to incorporate other kinds of merchandising, from children's clothing in their new store, Kids R Us, to all kinds of new markets and branding for toys that are coming out. And Gigi and Baby G kind of fade into the background during the 80s and aren't nearly as heavily promoted as just plain old Geoffrey in his pinstripe suit and this really beautiful little refined costume as the 80s moved on forward, and they started to make it look cuter and rounder and softer and more cuddly. They wanted to make the character as inviting and as welcoming as possible, matching up with the idea of what kids were in love with at the time. You know, Care Bears and, you know, the Muppet Babies. Everything was round, everything was soft, and the Geoffrey design 100% answered that call. He was a very specific icon to kids in the same way that Ronald or, you know, Mickey Mouse himself was. And kids wanted to go to Toys R Us to meet Geoffrey, and they could, and they were constantly reminded of that because soon Geoffrey started to be dressed like he worked at Toys R Us and didn't just represent it. The 80s is also when they started the whole "I don't want to grow up, I'm a Toys R Us kid" that they used in their commercials over and over again, including that signature moment where it's like Of Mice and Men, where there's a kid sitting with the giraffe on a bench at a sunset. You know what I mean? And the kid's looking up at Geoffrey, petting him. Just look at the sunset, Jeff. Just look at the sunset, you beautiful giraffe. And they used that like view that's so well through the 90s, all right?
That if you can find a toy advertised at a lower price, anywhere, anytime, we'll match it. I'll guarantee it. Or my name isn't Charles Lazarus.
Hi, Ben.
Hi, Uncle Charles.
Well, he's right about one thing. We do guarantee our low prices.
The 1990s were real rough for Toys R Us because Walmart came around. By the end of the decade into 1999, and as the 2000s started to roll forward and the internet became bigger and bigger, Amazon set its sights on selling toys and really starting to cripple the Toys R Us market as a whole. And Toys R Us, largest toy store in the world market share, started to shrink as big, massive retailers started to offer toys to their customers. And so in the 90s, Geoffrey the Giraffe as a mascot was kind of put in the background in favor of constantly reminding you, the consumer, that Toys R Us, while it may not be the place you were thinking of buying toys anymore while you're out buying groceries at Walmart and whatnot, if you bring any retail price in that's lower than Toys R Us, we'll price match it. While Geoffrey the Giraffe, the costume character, really wasn't being pushed super hard, he was being animated for little segments in the commercials. Their 90s was just about like, hey guys, we have good prices, I promise. It was just all about like, here's the new toy and here's a great price for it. That's what every commercial was. New toy, great price. New toy, great price. And then a lot of, you know, kids being like, I just want toys. And then commercials of parents buying their kids toys and their kids are like, Dad, I love you. You know, there was a lot of that in the 90s. Really just emotionally manipulating parents. But it worked, kind of. I mean, they didn't close for another 20 years, so it kind of worked, right? This might seem crazy to you, but in 1997, you could go on the internet and put your zip code in and know what the weather was gonna be like for 10 days. Whenever you wanted. You didn't have to wait for anyone to tell you on the news. It was revolutionary. Do you remember the Weather Channel?
You've got
like but do you remember the weather website? Do you remember finding the weather on the internet? The new millennia brought a new vision to the Toys R Us store, and with that, a new flagship location in Times Square, New York. This place was huge, and if you want to know more about it, my good buddy Defunctland just did a great video on the history of the store. Check that out. And with the new store opening, they decided to go as big as possible. And so, let me just read to you the big announcement from their 2001 annual report debuting the Times Square location and their new Geoffrey the Giraffe. After 41 years as a two-dimensional cartoon character, Geoffrey the Giraffe has come to life in a new way in 2001 in a 60-second televised commercial that debuted in October. The new animatronic Geoffrey, created by legendary movie creature studio expert Stan Winston, has more points of motion than the dinosaurs of Jurassic Park and features the distinctive voice of the witty Jim Hanks, brother of Tom Hanks. That's right, we've got big robot giraffes, and you're gonna love that they sound exactly like Woody from Toy Story.
There's a snake in my boot.
What?
Geoffrey, are you sure about this?
Are you kidding? We're launching our biggest season ever with great low prices and more selection than anyone.
You know what, though? I've got to say that the giraffe animatronic that they built, the special effects rig that was indeed more complicated than the Jurassic Park T-Rex, didn't look half bad in the commercials. And the storytelling devices they started to use surrounding this realistic giraffe was really, really fun because he was in the store all the time, interacting with both guests and store associates, stocking the shelves, celebrating sales, talking about, what new releases are coming and holiday events. It was really a fun, witty, new kind of idea with Geoffrey, because previously Geoffrey just been very informative. He's like, come on down and check out everything, and don't forget that there's 99 happy haunts. There's a lot of that, but now Geoffrey's like, hey guys, here you're looking for toys. Good luck. There's a lot of that. It was just like,
No problem. Bike shop, Imaginarium, preschool learning right behind you, and look for X-Men in the R zone, but you better get there ASAP.
Oh, you're cute. No matter what you're looking for, chances are we've got it.
And the stores answered to this realistic Geoffrey animatronic that they were using commercials all the time by making a new costume character version for the stores that really just threw away the whole idea of the cartoony, playful, mascots that we'd previously seen in stores and tried to represent the realistic giraffe as a realistic mascot. And what you get is a human body with a horribly out of scale, realistic giraffe head. Like the kinds of giraffes you see at FAO Schwartz, around the holiday seasons where they're selling all those giant, oversized, realistic looking stuffed animals that, for $400. And you're like, who is ever gonna buy that giraffe for $400? That's exactly what this looks like. It's too realistic. It's almost like, what if I could just go to a zoo? I can just go to a zoo and see a giraffe like this. There's nothing really that playful about it, because all the playfulness of the Geoffrey the Giraffe in the commercials came from the wittiness of that Tom Hanks familiar Woody sounding voice. It was fun. He was interesting. He was engaging. And all that personality was lost once you got into the store and could meet the giraffe. As the 2000s rolled forward, in 2007, Toys R Us faced a leveraged buyout. A bunch of big investment firms came in, bought up a bunch of their stocks, and before you knew it, Toys R Us had a new owner. And with that came a lot of debt and a new Geoffrey. And they matched the design and the kind of iconic look of Geoffrey to the idea of modern animation. We talked about how they did this in the 80s, refreshing Geoffrey occasionally to make him look more kinder and more playful, like we saw in, say, the Care Bears or, Mickey Mouse. But now Geoffrey is matching the animation styles we're seeing on things like Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon. It's all flat, cell-shaded stuff. His Geoffrey giraffe spots have been replaced with bright, colorful stars. He's got a big, iconic yellow belly. His murder horns have been turned into playful joysticks on the tops of his heads. He's a very fun, cartoony character, and he's rendered as a flat, static 2D animation. He's also done in a 3D style, where he's on Santa's sleigh, and he's or he's going through the, he's done that way. And then he also has a representation in the stores as a new mascot character. And the mascot looks pretty good, actually. It's super inviting, and it has a ton of personality built into the costume, unlike the 2001 realistic giraffe. Now kids are going there and seeing it, and they're just excited. Now it's a fun, friendly, cartoony, silly giraffe. And that was the final kind of nail in the coffin in terms of Geoffrey's costume. It was nigh 10 years later that the Toys R Us as a whole was closing down entirely and disappearing from the face of the earth. But this costume was around long enough to really have made its way into most of the Toys R Us locations before they closed. In fact, there are sad videos on the internet of of 2001 realistic Geoffrey and like cartoony 2007 Geoffrey just wandering around closing Toys R Us stores. It's so sad to watch. They're like, it's like a depressing toy zoo enclosure. What makes me laugh though is the idea of the two employees that were in those costumes. It's like, in 30 years, gonna be like, where'd you work when you were growing up? It's like, oh, I worked at Toys R Us. Oh, really? Man, I remember going there. It's like, yeah, I was there for the last 10 minutes. But they were open. You were? What were you doing? I was inside a giraffe, being real sad. Toys R Us was a unique place all to its own, and Walmart and Amazon and Target, these places might have killed off the idea of the toy store, but they don't replace the toy store. Toys R Us was a place you could go and play with toys before taking them home. You could interact with the Thomas the Tank Engines and Barbie Dream Houses. You could ride the bikes around the stores. You could actually play, and it was encouraged because that was the big sales device. Bring your kids here to kind of run around and play, and then hopefully they'll fall in love with the toy and you'll buy it for them. Well, let me know if you ever got to meet Geoffrey the Giraffe in any of your local toy stores growing up over the past 30, 40 years that he's been making his casual appearances. So let me know in the comments below on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Patreon. I really love hearing from you guys. I love seeing the pictures of the costume characters that I review that you guys got to meet. I love to hear the stories about the ways that you interacted with these characters. So please let me know. I want to just take in all of your magic. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, you rock.